G2 versus Schalke. Take it away, guys.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. And hello, everybody. I'm Quickshot, joined here for the final series of EU LCS in 2018 alongside Vedius and Deficio. Gentlemen, we started playoffs with the European Super Six. We went all the way to finals, and then with Vitality and Fnatic in the Worlds, we're down to the final four. We've now eliminated two of them, and we've now got the dynamic duo.
Whoa.
Exactly, of Schalke and G2.
How long were you practicing that?
More than I should have. Let's set us up. Pick some bans, Vedius. The Heimer is taken off the table.
What a surprise!
Andre's big words in the interview. Not willing to play in game one.
No, that's the counter he was talking about. You can just ban it.
Yes, that is the ultimate counter. Now, I'm expecting the Aatrox and the Urgot to be taken away, but no, we're seeing the Olaf. Deficio, you said it before, you expected an
There
Olaf
you
ban.
go. That's what I needed you to say.
Performance yesterday.
Listen, if you're Schalke, you would love to grab a Skarner and get rid of an Olaf, and you can get a super good early jungle matchup for Amazing. Urgot ban coming in, meaning Schalke do not have to first pick it or potentially give it away. So everything to me is saying Skarner, but Alistar is still open. And that has been one of the go-to picks for VandeR and was taken away by Fnatic.
I feel like that they'd be okay giving up the Alistar if they think that Tahm Kench is still viable in the meta. We did see a fair amount of it yesterday and the day before from both Splyce and G2. And in the past, it's always been considered a pretty strong matchup. But there's the Skarner ban. We'll leave the Alistar open. And if they look for that priority, I feel like G2 are pretty quick to respond.
And of course, the Skarner ban targeted to Amazing because of his fantastic performance against Fnatic in the finals. That's the clips you're seeing on your screen right now. First pick priority for Schalke. Which direction do they go? Akali is open, but is it a bait? I want to see if anyone decides to pick it up.
I think we've seen now a lot of teams do not want to first pick Akali because there is answers to it. We might see it in the second phase if it's not banned away. Varus, however, has been the go-to pick for a lot of European AD carries. Finally, they actually start really prioritizing a champion that can do so many things in-game, from laning phase to late-game teamfights as well. And ooh, that's a strong bot lane from G2.
This was something that we did see from them towards the end of the regular season. The Ashe Tahm Kench bot lane was something that gives you a bit of power, is relatively safe, offers that engage as well. And I feel like that it kind of fits into the style of Hjärnan and Wadid that we've seen from G2 in the last weeks of the race.
Yeah, this is the most standard G2 bot lane to draft because it brings utility and it's safe on its own. They will focus on the solo laners. I am expecting a carry top lane as well coming in from Wunder. And now we get Poppy, early picked. Can still go jungle.
I want to see what Wunder runs into it. I've seen all of G2 with a lot of banter on socials, but even in the pre-game lobby, gentlemen, Wunder typed, "Hey Schalke, what food should I get when I make it to Korea?" So I want to see big words in the lobby even today, and what's he going to play into the Poppy? There's the Aatrox, can be flex, but maybe expecting it top.
I was kind of expecting it coming to be a ban from the side of Schalke, but given that they locked in the Poppy early, Wunder's going to be more than happy to take this matchup. You will have the early push, you have the advantage during the laning phase, and now you're kind of expecting another playmaker to come out from the side of PerkZ, like we saw from them yesterday in their series versus Splyce. They will be on red side, so they will have that ability to counterpick, and we'll see what direction Schalke take, because right now, their comp looks pretty well-rounded, pretty solid in terms of engage and team fighting.
I just like that both teams are really sticking to the styles that's been working. You know, Aatrox, the carry top laner for Wunder, can still go jungle, worst case for Jankos if they need it there, but safe bot lane as well from G2. And then the most standard things from Schalke in Alistar plus Poppy. It's how they got to the finals in the first place, and now it's how they can go to Worlds.
Deficio, you said that Aatrox is working for Wunder. He's currently undefeated 4-0, 16 kills, 5 deaths, 16 assists. It's beyond just working, it's phenomenal so far. And the last two bans in phase 2, it is Trundle Jarvan for G2 Esports, Akali, and a few seconds longer to decide what they're going to go. And there's the Tilia.
Now, there's a lot of jungle bans from the side of G2, and they have the first pick right now. So they can really limit the options for Amazing, and they're immediately going to take away the Sejuani. Looking at potential options, immediately the Zac. Something that we've seen kind of risen back into the meta with tank junglers still being very strong. Surprised they didn't go for something like the Gragas, but they do want that extra source of engage from the side of Schalke.
Yeah, and I think Zac makes a lot of sense here. Sejuani cannot punish you properly in the early game. You get past the early levels and you become this fantastic ganger into then a super strong team fighter. And Zac is insane against Tahm Kench because it's AoE when he's pulling you back. You can't just devour a guy and then feel safe. Tahm Kench will be pulled with the guy in his belly. So I really think Schalke, the last phase here, really strong.
Very first game for Amazing in EU LCS on this champion ever as well.
Now, I was going to say that a Cassio is a potential answer, something that PerkZ can carry on. Good matchup into the Ryze, and it does give you nice scaling damage. But in terms of being able to play the 1-3-1, this definitely isn't what G2 are kind of looking for. They have options to move around the map because they have the Tahm Kench, but you have strong pressure up towards the top. Once you get your tier, you'll have pressure in mid, but I feel like we're in for a bit of a slow scaling game here, Deficio.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to force team fights here on both sides, but I feel like Schalke, they have the superior mid lane matchup for side lane, and I think Poppy will actually be fine against the Aatrox. You can control when he can all in you because you can block a lot of dashes.
Later in the game.
Later in the game, obviously, but I think Schalke would be happy in terms of setting up a 1-3-1 without having that as a main win condition. It's going to come down to big team fights, which is why they're all drafting a ton of frontline engage, and then you have a lot of consistent DPS from both carries.
Well, let's figure out who's going to strike first in our regional qualifier final. Everything for the 2018 season is on the line. Win this series and represent Europe at the 2018 World Championships. Coach Andre Guilhoto and Grab shaking hands for the first time today, and hopefully the first of 5. We've been very fortunate to have 5-game series, so many of them, and I want to see 5 games.
Yeah, the trend, sadly, of 5 games has been broken a little bit. NA is at double 3-0, but that doesn't matter for us right here, because yesterday was super close between Schalke, sorry, between G2 and Splice. And I'm thinking today could actually be exactly the same.
Well, we're going to find out, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing, the man on your screen going up against Jankos and PerkZ. Schalke 04 taking on G2 Esports, 3rd seed. That is the stakes for G2. It's living up to the legacy that they have created. And for Schalke, first time ever going to Worlds in their first season back in the EULCS. A lot on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the regional qualifier game 1. Vedius, what direction are we looking at? You mentioned some scaling. You mentioned maybe a slightly slower earlier game. But if somebody were to make a move, who would it be and where?
Well, I think both teams have options once you hit the level 6 mark. You kind of look at the setup from the side of Schalke in the bot lane. They have the Varus plus the Alistar. Amazing can come in from very creative paths because he's on the Zac. So you could set up a play in bot lane, but the same can be said for G2. You have the Ashe arrow, you have the cross-map play available. Jankos, when he hits that level 6 mark, has the ulti to set up plays. And I feel like that if G2 were to play anywhere in terms of the early game, top lane would be a great place to start because Aatrox in the early game, very powerful, has a lot of pressure, and against the Pop, you kind of want him to be winning if they have to move off towards a side lane later on.
Definitely true. Luckily, Poppy again is good at stopping things like Sejuani also from dashing in her face and actually start applying her passive. But I think looking at the bottom lane from G2, we said this in Pick and Ban, it's like the most standard bot lane you can get. And it is a very strong laning bot lane they have. Glacial augment Tahm Kench against melee support makes it really difficult for Alistar to ever do something aggressively because he starts getting tagged, slowed down, and then he will eventually get devoured. And we know Ashe is a very strong early laner because of her very quick early poke with like volley plus auto attack. So I think G2 will actually look to control the bottom side without necessarily ganking it. And then all the focus needs to be around making sure that PerkZ and Wunder do not fall behind, because that's really the key thing for G2. Your solo laners, they cannot fall behind.
Yeah, and it's something you always have to be careful of if you're a low mobility mid laner like Cassio. She does have the cleanse to get out of the root from the Ryze, but given that you don't have escapes, once your flash is down, we saw yesterday what Jankos was able to do. The repeated ganks towards the mid lane, the setup that you have with the Ryze can be very potent at kind of snowballing this lane out of control. So making sure you have that deep vision to see what Amazing is up to will be very important for PerkZ and Jankos.
We'll actually have some stats for Jankos in his series yesterday, and I want to contrast the wins and losses. Jungle proximity significantly higher at 47% in their wins. Look at the kills plus assist at 15, aggregate 3.3. When Jankos is active and around his laners, his team seems to win.
Yeah, 100%, and I actually think that's why he was kind of the unsung hero of this series, because he'd been so bad in so many games in the second half of the split, where he's been the main reason they would lose early. I think yesterday he showed up, especially in the wins as you highlighted right there, Trevor, and when you want to play aggressive solo laners like G2 with Aatrox top lane, you need a good early game jungle. You need someone who can actually set up either ganks or proper counter ganks.
Thing is, he did really well when he was on champions that allowed him to do well in terms of the early game. The Olaf is something that I think he really stood out on.
Yes.
Similar can be said for the Skarner, but when you put him on tanks, that's when I start to have a couple question marks around his performance. So now that he's on the Sejuani, especially around level 6, he will be one of the primary engage tools. How aggressive does he look to be in the early? Because he doesn't need to, but he will be important later on into the team.
Well, you can see first full clear on both sides here for the junglers. Not really sniffing out any opportunities. Nobody's over pushing their lanes, so it is melodic start to the game, but it does give us a little bit of time to set up the opposite number to Jankos, looking at Amazing. This is a guy who has been very heavily criticized for a fairly long time, but playoffs has silenced a lot of the haters and a lot of the critics, and look at how effective his early game stats were during the finals against Fnatic.
Yeah, exactly that, Quickshot. We were really impressed with his performance in the finals. The fact that he just felt extremely consistent. He was finding a lot of early game opportunities, especially on champions like the Skarner and the Gragas, and he was a big part of where Schalke found their initial leads. Unfortunately, they couldn't transition that into winning teamfights later on against Fnatic.
Yeah, but just you mentioning Gragas, that's a big change, right? Because we were criticizing his champ pool before, said it was too easy to get rid of Amazing in the game when it was just Sejuani. It then became Sejuani and Skarner. But the fact he actually showed up on things like Gragas is pretty big. He's played Poppy jungle as well, so there seems to be more and more champions he can use. The Poppy maybe not so
I was
much.
surprised you threw Poppy in there after the other list, though.
But there were 5 jungle bans today, right? And you can say, like, the fact that so much was limited onto Amazing shows that people still try to funnel onto his limited champion pool, and he proves that he still has options available to him.
Yeah, I want to see exactly how he makes this Zac work. I like the fact he's running the SKT skin as well. Little nod to what's at stake and what they're playing for. But we're getting to the point now where junglers can get involved and start to make moves. Jankos gonna sneak up into this top lane bush, but the wave is pushing towards Chachi, it looks like, for now. So he's gonna be relatively safe unless he missteps.
So we talked about this. If G2 are looking to play around any lane, it will be Wunder on the Aatrox. Aatrox as a champion does gradually fall off later into the game. Deficio mentioned in draft, the later the game goes, Poppy's fine in a side lane against this champion, so you want to try and get him ahead, and they're looking for it right now.
So scary. If Chachi decides to stick around, he's got flash available to him. Needs to get out of range. Insta flash. That W's going to block Wunder from chasing, but it's simply not enough. Easy death so far. Secured by Wunder. Almost a safe, but Chachi too far forward.
I really like the bait right here. The wave was pushing towards Wunder. They were sitting and just waiting. Chachi's only way to survive would be to block the initial charge from Jankos, but obviously you got to react so quick to this. He ends up trying to flash away after. Still ends up going down to first blood for the most important player in G2. It is the Aatrox.
Now recognize that there were a lot of summoner spells used in that gank setup. Both flashes from Jankos and Wunder are gone. Same for Vizicsacsi. And that was actually a very good trade there from the side of Chachi. But a return gank is now what likely will happen from both junglers looking towards the top side of the map.
Well, let's see whether or not Amazing can make it work, though. Got a few minutes to play with, and he's just picked up the skull down bottom.
Yeah, I just want to see him get level 6 and then actually focus mid instead and just try and go for some easy kills against PerkZ. Look top lane here. The dash connects. You can block it. But again, you need to sit ready with the W key when you see a charge right next to you in the brush. So obviously, almost no reaction time right there, and Vizicsacsi ends up going down. But as I said before here with the Zac, like, you are probably the best jungler in the game at ganking mid. Because every little angle, every single little wall you can sit behind and fly over into the middle of the lane. And once you get the flash from PerkZ, your follow-up gank will be insane.
Ooh,
Talk about follow-up. VandeR's decided to go into Wadid, but it's Upset that's being smashed down by Hjärnan, using that range as focus. Upset and VandeR losing out that trade quite significantly.
And I like the trade here from G2's bot lane, proving the power of the Tahm Kench up against the Alistar. You can see that every time the Alistar tries to go in, the fact is he's used all of his mobility tools to close the gap, so that makes it that much harder to escape. And Deficio, you already talked about the Glacier Augment earlier. Now we see a bit of an invade from Jankos. Remember, they have pressure bot and they have pressure mid, so Jankos is very safe in setting up this invade.
Ooh, Amazing. Maybe he's sniffing this out or understanding what's at risk.
He hasn't checked the brush yet.
Starts to step back. Look at the bottom lane. Wadid's making his way up. There goes Jankos. I think he smited that one down. Elastic Slingshot will buy some time, and Blast Cone gets Amazing to safety at the cost of Jankos' ultimate, but he's also lost the buff.
And it's another great start from Jankos. Just like yesterday, he succeeds top lane with a gank for his top lane. He then steals away the red buff from Amazing. Contesting the Raptors as well. Amazing wants his level 6 badly. He's not getting it here.
So much getting stolen away from Amazing. One of the big weaknesses of Zac is he offers little to nothing in terms of early game skirmishing.
Oh, it's not over yet.
Is just continuing to use the pressure that he has in his lanes.
Jankos needs to be careful though, because he's mid lane and recall. PerkZ is running from base, so there is no help in case the mid laners join.
The bottom lane is the first one to move. Amazing's already used that smudge to get a little bit of HP back. Hjärnan and Wadid waiting in the tri-bush, and Nukeduck has not moved yet. So Jankos continuing to slap Amazing around in the jungle, but not necessarily finding the kill, just thwarting his efforts, trying to get in his face, and so far, it's a little bit of an experience advantage, but not more than that.
Yeah, but it does mean that Jankos has already hit that level 6. He did just use his ultimate, and I would love to see, once that ulti is up, him go towards the top side of the map and continue to get Wunder ahead. That Poppy Flash is going to be up in about a minute's time, I believe, which means that it's going to be that much harder to try and continue to get Wunder ahead, which is ideally what you want.
Look at all the deep vision, however. G2 again, when they have a winning top side, they do understand how to actually get full information of the enemy jungler. PerkZ also putting in another ward. So we have 3 wards in the jungle, plus a control ward up in the little tri-brush up north here, then multiple ones actually in the river. They can see absolutely everything happening here, and there's no way Wunder can get surprised.
Yeah, definitely the case. So enabling the carry that got first blood, the 4-0 Aatrox for Wunder. By the way, while we were talking and looking at that vision, PerkZ used the Petrifying Gaze in mid lane. Nukeduck didn't lose a lot of HP or any summoners either, so can only assume that Nukeduck was able to sidestep it.
And look, PerkZ moving bot lane again. He's still the one actually with the wards, even on this side of the map here, because they have to push with the Tahm, Kench, Ashe. A lot of pressure from G2 early. Schalke really playing from behind.
Ooh, swing and a miss. Going to be upset with that one. It's a 700 gold lead. This vision, this pressure, this first blood, that's what G2 have put themselves in, but it's more about controlling the game. You can feel they are at the reins in charge right now.
It's very, very true. I'm still waiting for Amazing around the mid lane. We might get the play from before. I assume PerkZ is hiding around the corner, and then we'll try and hold on to Nukeduck. Yep, sneaks in.
That was optimistic, I suppose, but
He was creating space, is how I like to call it.
it was a zoning ultimate? Is that?
I mean, I think what his goal was to try and chunk Nukeduck out so he could force him back, and then he could move towards bot, maybe set a vision around Drake and make that their next play. But for the time being, their actual focus is towards the top side of the map. They have this full vision control, triple control wards in the top side river, and again, Amazing on this Zac can't really contest these neutral objectives this early on into the game.
And of course, 10 minutes in, close game. It is 1,000 gold. It's not significant right now, but if you look at how Schalke performed against Fnatic in the finals, staying within touching distance, having a lead, in fact, in several of those games, but winning 20, 25 minutes later, or showing how competitive they were for that long. I want to see how good these teams are as we get to this mid and late game and what level Schalke is bringing today, as well as G2.
Because it was a very exciting final, and even though the scoreline was 3-1, it was super close throughout the entire series, and that really represents in the goal difference. But the big decider was those late game team fights. And Deficio, a point that we were discussing yesterday was how will G2... The thing that Schalke don't have to worry about is G2's late game team fighting, because that's arguably one of their biggest weaknesses.
Exactly, so Schalke should be fine towards the late game, unlike against Fnatic. But the early game, they can still get pressured, and that's what we're seeing in this one. I'm glad to see G2 focus again on a very strong point, which is, again, Wunder winning top side into then controlling that side of the map. And they got the Rift Herald, they had full deep vision of Amazing. He's not succeeded with any ganks in the early game, and G2 again putting pressure, and when they have Tahm, Kench, we have to remember when G2 gets ahead and the laning phase ends, Wadid will go mid lane, and he's gonna be fantastic on it. Let's see Amazing on bottom lane.
Flash forward, stretching strike! Oh, but the Devour comes down from Wadid. Perfect timing, perfect placements.
Just outside of the Zac ulti. Wadid right there saves his AD carry. We'll have to use Flash forward, but he did trade it for Amazing, so I call worth.
Good use of the Tahm Kench save there from Wadid. The fact that Amazing finally finds his first gank of the game works out nicely, but we need to see more activity from him. Some of the spells are kind of coming back on towards the top side of the map. Gold still remains slightly in favor of G2, but this is still the slow early game that we expected. You can see initially things look a little dicey for Amazing because he misses his Q, but obviously the second proc of the Zac Q means that you can slap two things together and then ideally bring them into your team, but then we saw the save from him.
It's quite nice seeing Amazing sort of realize or anticipate, hey, if I've missed this one, having the ability to, in the fly, adapt and change.
Yep.
Unlike when we saw him on the Poppy jungle, looking a little more uncomfortable, a little more out of his element. Wunder, by the way, is looking for Chachi, managing to pull him back to the Infernal Chains, and Wunder, he could dive here as well.
Well, Chachi's in a horrible spot right now. He doesn't have a lot of armor on his side. Wunder's already completed Black Cleaver, and he's ahead. He's constantly just landing poke because he knows he's not going to get ganked.
Well, look at this. Vizicsacsi's down 20 CS already, but it is somewhat what you're expecting in this matchup. Poppy needs time and armor and items to be able to stand toe-to-toe with Aatrox.
I mean, 100%, and with him falling behind, plus itemizing for tenacity boots to actually try and mitigate some of this duration of CC from someone like Jankos or the Ashe, means that right now Wunder is really just cutting through him.
And while the action was happening topside, we can see that the ulti was used from Jankos. I believe he tried to throw it towards mid, but Wunder now needs to be careful.
Amazing.
Okay, Wunder, flash is available to him, and here comes Amazing. No access to Let's Bounce. The ultimate thrown down by Wunder. He continues to chase Chachi. Chachi forced to flash for his life. Amazing's trying to do what he can with that unstable Mata, but Wunder is too tanky and too strong right now.
And now G2 grouping up in the mid lane after seeing Amazing up top. They secured the Rift Herald earlier, and there's not enough wave clear on the side of Schalke to stop this.
Bit of a panic gank right there from Amazing, not knowing what to do on the map. He goes top, no ulti available on his side, and no damage really. Wunder is fully controlling that lane, and G2, they just answer quickly in mid.
And you're seeing how strong this Aatrox is right now as both teams grouping up around the mid lane.
Amazing is now making it a hat-trick of ganks. Stretching Strike will find one. This could be the first kill for Schalke, and it looks like they will donate it to Nukeduck. On the board, still down 1,000 gold.
This is why I like Zach on stage. Never stop ganking after the early levels. You will always get to someone at some point, and you will secure a kill for your team. Sadly, you can't do anything top, so don't go back there.
Yeah, we saw how powerful Wunder is. We were just about to talk about the completed Black Cleaver working towards his second item, which you imagine will be the Death Stance as well. And in a 2 versus 1, he forces the flash out of Vizicsacsi. This guy is in a prime position to be a big carry threat for G2, and they just need to maintain this pressure.
And of course, as we're getting closer to 15 minutes, PerkZ is now looking once again for Nukeduck. Twin Fang after Twin Fang, trying to chase him with Petrifying Gaze.
Ran out of mana.
You can see the win-loss there, gentlemen. 9 wins, 9 losses, went behind at 15 minutes. Schalke are the second best team in the EU LCS at playing from a deficit, behind only Fnatic. Vizicsacsi also will not concede that Gromp, manages to sneak in there and steal away with that Hammer Shock.
It's a lot of games where they're actually behind. So they're also one of the best teams at falling behind in the early game. So they set up the chance to get back in the game.
It was all practice for this game, for the final best of 5 in Berlin, Deficio.
It's very true, and you know what? I'm a bit scared if it means falling behind against G2 with Tahm Kench and Aatrox, because again, that combo, once we get further into the game, is going to be really hard to shut down. When you try to gank Wunder with 3 players, Tahm Kench shows up with an AD carry.
All right, Chachi's got a lot more armor this time around. Pins Wunder into the wall. Manages to sidestep those Infernal Chains, and look at the damage onto Wunder with that Balmy Cinder. But the moment Wunder can turn around and get a couple Qs down, Chachi decides to peace out already. 15 minutes in, Chachi looking a little bit more capable of containing the Aatrox. As we're going to see another bout, level advantage for Wunder. Chachi throws down the Q. I think this is just a bit of a dodge, dip, duck, and dive. Divergence, once again, trading. But it doesn't look like anybody's got kill threat yet.
Now, I do feel like the game has gone the way in which we expected. G2 getting the early lead, playing through top side of the map, both sides kind of scaling. And with Schalke, remember that they have the ability to play the 1-3-1 comp, but also their team fight setup is very solid. We also see that aside from the G2, they're also scaling the Cassio Ashe, working towards those 2 items, ultimately building up what we expect to be a lot of mid to late game team fighting.
Well, right now it's just one-on-one action. The top lane has had a chance. Amazing Jankos are having a chance. We've seen PerkZ and Nukeduck trading, and it's a question I have. Who is going to have the advantage for the next 10 minutes? You know, when we enter that 1-2 item spike before we get to that very late game?
Well, I think just based on Wunder right now, the advantage is on G2's side, at least if he can sit here 1v1. Because the thing we got to remember is, while he's not instantly killing Chachi, he's winning in terms of sustain, both mana and HP. He doesn't need to use any mana on Aatrox. Bot side Nukeduck, he might die.
Yeah, PerkZ is using a lot of mana to try to chase him down. Here comes Jankos, manages to lock it down Nukeduck. And that's very easily secured. Second kill of the game to G2 Esports. Second tower of the game to G2. And that trickle of a lead is now turning into a fountain, plus 3,000 gold.
And now the pace of the game is starting to pick up for G2. They realize that, hey, Nukeduck sitting in a side lane, we can look to punish this, and Schalke, because they have no pressure elsewhere on the map, they can't gain anything for sending 2 members bot. After securing that kill, they now have control over the Mountain Drake, and they're going to pretty much get everything across the map.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we talked a bit about before here when we kept mentioning Tahm Kench from Wadid, because it actually allows PerkZ to sit in a side lane. He's not really at risk. If they try to gank him, Tahm Kench will show up as well and save him. So you can actually play split push as G2 because of your support being nice.
Look at that, the Chain of Corruption connected. That means Upset's in trouble. Resurrection will not be enough. As soon as he pops back out, flashes over the wall, and a piercing arrow takes him down.
Ah, classy. You gotta waste your flash on the way out as well here. Wunder, there's no way for him to stay alive after he snuck his way in for a blue buff. But if you look at the minimap right now, if anything happens bot from Schalke's side, Hjärnan and Wadid will show up as well. So G2 know they can go for tower dives. They cannot die here.
But I also think it's important to just look at the vision that G2 had towards the bot side of the map as well. They were fully aware of where everyone on Schalke was, and they know that Vizicsacsi just got forced back to base from the side of Wunder. So you could argue a bit of a mistake from Nukeduck, just not realizing that he doesn't have the pressure, and he ends up losing his life for it. Now the bright side is, they ended up killing Wunder.
Yeah, a little bit of a mistake from Wunder,
Yes.
not realizing that he could invade and give up his life. So we're approaching 20 minutes. It's still a lead for G2, and G2 are still, I feel, a little bit more of the proactive team. There was a string of ganks from Amazing that were very well put together, but it didn't accrue any very large advantages. And now the lanes have reset. PerkZ has gone down bottom, Hjärnan and Wadid holding mid, and Wunder remains top.
And also just look at some of the items that are completed. Cassio, 19 minutes, fully stacked here, and a Ryze that is terrifying. Very strong point in the game for her. Aatrox has also gone for the Ghostblade second. So going for that extra bit of lethality, much better in terms of the side lane trading power, and G2 are feeling very confident if they want to look for a fight right now.
I think Schalke's only way to play the game the next couple of minutes is trying to force a team fight, honestly, with Zach and Alistar. When it comes to pure 1-3-1 setup, they're just going to be weaker everywhere.
But I feel like in a team fight, it'd be really dangerous to fight them right now just because of the difference in the item.
But you're not fighting against all 5 G2 players.
Ah, I see.
You're like using your long-range engage to maybe jump the 3 people in mid lane, and
Right.
you only fight those guys. If you go and try and 2v1 PerkZ or Wunder, it will completely backfire for Schalke because of the globals on G2's side.
Yep.
And of course that means G2 in the power lanes have secured all outer towers. PerkZ was able to push down bottom after Hjärnan and Wadid are holding mid. G2 maintain a healthy gold lead. We're going into this mid game with the item advantage, the tempo advantage, and as far as we can see, they've got these strong solo lanes that Schalke have to figure out how to dissuade. But one of the things that Schalke have been pretty good at throughout the split is forcing fights or playing around the mid to late game team fights. So there is some hope here for the Schalke and this team composition.
Yeah, there is, and G2 still also needs to actually get, you know, Baron or an inhib turret before they are really threatening the game, but VandeR, he's taking damage.
So much damage from Wunder. Those infernal chains and the Darkened Blade just sets it up for Hjärnan to take him down. That's the 3rd kill for G2, but it's not over yet. Schalke are in a little bit of trouble. Upset! Flashes into the Grob, doesn't get over the wall, and that allows PerkZ to take him down. Baron is alive, and G2 are peeling back for it.
2 quick kills, and G2 can immediately rush towards the Baron. Amazing is alive, though.
And just remember, it's Vizicacsi's Poppy. How many times has he saved games this split already? Petrifying Gaze just for the slow. Nukeduck turns that one around. There's the Keeper's Verdict. It's already used, but a knockup from Wunder puts Vizicsacsi back in place. Amazing tries to split the team with Let's Bounce, and the damage is good, but Vizicsacsi loses his life. G2 may be stopped on Baron, but they've got themselves another kill.
Yeah, Schalke bought some time right here, but G2 still 5 members alive. Chachi's dead for 30 seconds. Upset is alive in just 1. They're going for another one. Amazing again, just trying to delay G2. They stop the Baron from dying. Oh, do we get a fight? No, VandeR not in range.
Not this time around. They interrupt the backs, and PerkZ is able to catch a gigantic wave, but this is a very big swing for G2.
And again, the whole setup is because G2 have map control, so when they go as a 5-man group, they instantly see Schalke in the river, and they're like, let's fight these guys. VandeR gets caught out, and I think what happened to Upset right there is he might have forgotten he had cleanse, because when he saw the arrow, that's when he tried to flash early, instead of just take the arrow, cleanse it, and get closer to the wall, and then flash over.
Big mistake there from Upset, did end up costing his life, and Schalke now falling even further behind in this game. 4,000 is their deficit, and I feel like the number of options that they have in terms of turning this game around are starting to get limited. Obviously, they still have the potential late game, but you kind of compare the late game team fighting prowess, Ryze to a Cassio, the Varus to an Ashe. Their ability to melt through the front line, I feel, is heavily in favor of G2, and then there's always the threat of Wunder diving onto the back line and just melting those carries.
Yeah, especially when you look at the item differences as well. I think with the exception of Upset versus Hjärnan, it's big advantage to the rest of Schalke. G2, they started Baron, but I think it's just to pull Schalke towards them. Vision heavily in favor of G2 Esports, and Schalke are going to be very, very careful with how they progress.
Yeah, there's no flash on Varus. He is sitting with Rage Blade now, but can he actually stand still on DPS? A bit of damage on Wunder. All Schalke are trying to do at this point is delay the game. Because at this current state, you're not beating G2 Esports.
No, not the case, but they have successfully prevented an early Baron. Cassio, Aatrox, Ashe, they would actually melt through that pretty quickly this early on. For Schalke,
Yeah, I mean,
it's a glimmer. You need to buy time to get yourself back into this game.
And before, honestly, G2 could have stayed at the Baron. They didn't have to instantly rush at Vizicsacsi and, of course, Amazing, who showed up near it. They could have waited for these guys to get a bit closer into the river and then try and turn. But I think the call made sense to say, okay, when these guys show up, we will fight them. This is the play from before. Wadid, Tahm, Kench in behind. Schalke now caught out in a reset. You can see Nukeduck is in base. And that means they can't actually fight it. And the sad thing for the Varus here is it really feels like it's like the last chance for him to get out. But he's not actually. He's actually at a point where the wall is really thick. And then he ends up just flashing to the Grump instead.
Such a difficult situation to be in. And it's a difficult start to the series. Schalke favored by many to win this BO5. But you need to pick up those 3 wins. They managed to get their first tower of the game. And G2 are looking for a collapse.
But I gotta say, just like yesterday in some of the good games from G2, it looks a lot more like the team we sent to Rift Rivals that was the best team in Europe when they didn't just play funnel comps, when it was about Aatrox top lane for Wunder, when it was around super safe bot lanes like Tahm, Kench coming in. Baron started again another fight.
Oh, the Infernal Chains are going to catch on to VandeR, as is the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. VandeR is already down. Chain of Corruption slowly starts to spread, and despite some damage on Wunder, it's another easy pick-off.
Now that was a lot of ultimates thrown onto VandeR, so G2, they don't want to commit right now to the Baron because a lot of their engage tools are unavailable, so they're instead just going to make their way towards Infernal. Schalke will be happy to regain some of the vision, but G2, they're utilizing this Baron well, largely to force a lot of fights. They're not over-committing to the objective, running the risk of a steal or Chachi doing one of his miracle plays once again.
Yeah, 25 minutes in, G2 are still in the lead. They've got 3 towers to 1, 2 Drakes to 0, and they got the kill lead thanks to picks like this one.
So here we see the Realm Walk coming in from Nukeduck just to get a bit of vision. Then Schalke funnel into this choke point, and for VandeR, his ultimate isn't anywhere near enough to deal with 3 ultimates combined with a miasma that was just thrown on his face. So another quick kill, and unfortunately VandeR, the sacrificial lamb, is he's the only one that can really face check.
Yeah, and of course, we talked a little bit about how Schalke are one of the better teams at playing with a deficit. They were 9-9 when behind at 15 minutes. If you fast forward, with a deficit at 25 minutes, they are tied with Fnatic with 6 wins and 10 losses. Let's see whether or not they can make that 7 and 10, as they are trying to put pressure in the mid lane.
I mean, they're going to get this one because
PerkZ and Jankos are going to steal this away.
Yeah, Schalke right now are focusing more around the mid lane, so this is now the Baron for G2. Did not have to go all 5, but just 2 mana down with PerkZ and Jankos. Great play from G2. They get the Baron they need. If this gives them now all the last outer turrets and break into the base of Schalke, it really feels like a G2 win.
Yeah, I feel like G2 even have tools to set up a dive, and with the gold difference, they might not be afraid of doing it. Again, Wunder, level 15 on the Aatrox, nearing his 3rd completed item. Things are just looking so good for G2, not only in how they got this early game lead, but how they've been able to utilize it following into the mid game.
Stick with me for a moment, but this game feels similar to how Schalke beat Fnatic in game 1 of the finals. There was a clear game plan and strategy to play the comp, and it seemed to work out. G2 have used this Aatrox fantastically as he's once again hammering away on Vizicsacsi. Yes, the keeper's verdict sends them flying, but it's too little, it's too late. And G2, from minute 1, have been in control of the game, and they've steadily increased that lead to now 27 in.
It's very true. I think the big opening for Schalke in their draft was going to be around the Ryze mid lane with a Zac, and you could try and shut down PerkZ, but we didn't see any action around mid at all. PerkZ just sat there and free farm against the Ryze, and then he walked to a side lane, had Jankos around him, plus Wadid's Tahm, Kench, and no one could actually ever kill him. So Schalke's composition, the little bit of punch it could have had, never tried it.
Oh, Ashe Arrow just goes a little bit wide. That means Upset's able to escape with his life. Still sitting on Flash and Cleanse. Now, PerkZ is not with the team. He's pushing down bottom. And then again, neither is Nukeduck, interrupting the Elastic Slingshot. Nicely done, Jankos. Realm Warp will bring Nukeduck to the fray, but there's no further follow-up.
We can see PerkZ continuing to push up towards the bottom lane. Level 17 on this Cassio. No one can really match him in a side lane, especially as he's nearing the completion of his 4th major item. And he will secure another tower for G2. 7,000 is the gold lead, and G2 looking good. We're expecting this to be a competitive day. We even heard from the coach of Schalke saying that he expects this to be much closer than perhaps many give credit to Schalke. So already in game 1, this is looking like a good series.
I mean, I think, again, yesterday showed to us that G2 can actually play some really good League of Legends. Like some of the ways they snowball early leads was really, really clean. They struggled when it was a slow early game, when nothing happened. This wasn't a fast early game by any means, but they were never under pressure.
Yeah.
It was only really amazing who could force something, because we had the safe bot lane from G2, always doing well. We had Wunder getting the early gank.
Oh my
Oh,
word.
yeah, it's a lot of damage.
Nukeduck forced a flash, trying to use the shield to run away for his life. But there's a fight in the mid lane. All of a sudden, wait, who did? Yeah, amazing catch. He's running for his life. PerkZ and Jankos trying to put the damage down. Down in the bottom lane. How the hell did Nukeduck survive? There's action on so many fronts. While all that's going on, Hjärnan and Wadid, they were pushing the top lane. In the end, nobody goes down.
G2 putting pressure down all across the map, and Schalke tried to answer with a fight in mid, but now we see another bit fight up top.
All right, Hjärnan able to survive with the Devour. Looking at summon up spell cooldowns, I think PerkZ was the target for Amazing, but he didn't catch him.
Wunder was close right there. He just missed the last ability onto Nukeduck. He's gonna TP in to join his team now. Schalke's still around, but they're fairly low.
All right, the tower's gonna drop in just one more hit. It is down. Here comes Wunder, trying to use that Darkened Blade to get some follow-up. Flash and Cleanse still available for upset, so if Schalke want to defend their inhibitors, they have to find an opportunity. 10 seconds left. Nukeduck slowed down by that Petrifying Gaze, and VandeR once again the target. He's looking for the stun, will not find it yet. Vizicsacsi coming in. The inhibitor in the top lane will fall down, and G2 are playing multiple lanes flawlessly.
PerkZ is just too strong in a 1 versus 2. He forces Nukeduck and VandeR away from the turret, secures it himself, and G2 are able to secure an inhibitor in the top lane. 10,000 gold lead is in the pockets of G2, and they are dismantling Schalke in game 1.
And G2 are showing again that you can't beat them if they have two strong solo laners that get past the early game, that might even get a slight lead, and then they have really good tools to play the entire map, especially with Wadid, Tahm, Kench here. So there's just so many ways for them to execute in every single lane. Wunder, he likes to do this. His entire team is in base, and he's sitting here all alone, hoping to catch someone.
And he gets out. Unbelievable. Nicely done, Wunder. Plays the situation well.
was kind of walked away.
Quickshot.
He walked away,
He
Trevor.
overextended.
Of course he was, but he escaped. Just like that scene in Mission Impossible, right? Drakos told me about it.
Yes.
Manages to make it out.
You assume.
Wunder was obviously punished earlier in the game for being a little overextended this time around. Found the exact perfect route, but it's a gigantic lead, 10,000 gold, all the Drakes, all the towers, the itemization advantage, still like a 1-item lead for nearly everybody on the G2 squad. And it just feels like semantics for them to knock over the next.
And one of the big narratives we set up coming into game 1 was the difference between the junglers, and how Jankos, when he finds an early lead, he's really good at utilizing it, and how amazing. Many expected him to be a bit of a Sejuani one-trick, but in the final, he showed he can be active in terms of ganking and setting things up for his team. But so far in this game, the difference has been in those junglers. Jankos has found those leads. Amazing has struggled to impact.
Well, I think Amazing had no options other than just mid alone, and G2 knew that. He couldn't go bot, he couldn't go top. We saw that when he tried. Wunder just smacked him in the face and forced him away. So it's been a lot easier for Jankos to actually play around some very strong lanes drafted by G2 in the sides. And now we're waiting for him to get another inhib. Schalke are hoping to get a last fight. They have 3 items on both carries, but can they actually kill the front line?
They don't have a lot of time. Super minions are now inside the base of Schalke. A piercing arrow, as well as that hurricane, is allowing Upset to clear the waves. Remember, Baron wore off a little while ago. And VandeR, he's still looking for an opportunity. 0-2 on that champion for now. But G2, they are not letting up. They are pushing multiple lanes every single time they are sieging Schalke, and they're doing it very, very well.
Well, the Baron's about to spawn in 1 minute, so G2 are just going to disengage. They can reset, spend some of the gold, refresh their control wards. You can even see Infernal Drake going to be picked up as well. And after this objective, it's likely going to be lights out. So Schalke, they can go for a do-or-die fight where they can potentially steal away the Baron or win a 5v5. Outside of that, G2 looking to secure game 1.
The terrifying thing is, with a Zac and a Poppy, there are game-changer abilities in the kits of Schalke. So even though they are 10k gold down, a fantastic team fight can still bring this to an even game.
Exactly, like if you manage to knock away 1 or 2 players with the Poppy ult, or maybe if they can find PerkZ, but he has the Banshee.
Oh, VandeR once again, a little bit caught out of position. Has he got enough HP in time? flashes over the wall. Blast cones to safety. Continues to get chased. Jankos throws out the Glacial Prism. VandeR's going to be gobbled up, devoured, spat back out, but here comes Nukeduck. The rest of Schalke are coming in. There's Amazing. He needs to channel Let's Bounce. Manages to throw out the stretching strike. Starts to split up the team. Upset to Nukeduck. Follow their HP. Wadid forced to devour Jankos and run for his life. Amazing is now running for his own life as Vizicsacsi goes down. There was not enough damage, not quickly enough, and G2 find 2.
They end up keeping all 5 members alive, just barely, as Schalke lose 2. Amazing is too low to contest the Baron, and VandeR, he just got a little over-eager. He didn't have his team to claim vision around the Baron. He ends up getting picked off, and G2 melts the objective.
We also got to see right there the Poppy ulti from Chachi. We mentioned maybe if he hits 1 or 2 guys, he can win the fight, but it completely missed. So VandeR, yeah, going in alone for vision, ends up finding PerkZ, can't really do anything to get out of this situation despite trying to flash away. But he is staying alive long enough that his team can try and jump in, but now you've already lost your support. So when Amazing jumps in, notice here, Chachi comes at the bottom. He can now knock away multiple G2 members, but he will charge up the ulti. He wants to try and land it on PerkZ, misses, and now they can't get rid of any damage dealers on the side of G2, and therefore they cannot win the fight.
G2 played that well to be able to turn it around, because initially when you invest all those resources into VandeR, you think, oh, this might not end well, but with good execution and nice dodge, we'll say, from PerkZ, they're able to end up winning the fight.
Dodge or miss, depends on your perspective. Flash is available for Nukeduck, and Chain of Corruption is up for upset. The only tools they've got available to them, but 2.5 minutes on Baron empowered minions. You can see a number of G2 pings, question marks in fact, in the top lane, as the minion wave's not really helping G2 out on this siege. They're just using their strong advantage in the gigantic gold lead.
Yeah, it feels like this game keeps giving Schalke a chance to get that perfect fight with the Zac ulti and the Poppy ulti. It's not happened yet. They are against double Infernal and everything, like, it's all in G2's favor.
Yeah.
But there's that one possibility.
And even if it happens, Deficio, it needs to happen again. There needs to be multiple fights for Amazing to bring this back. Chain of Corruption will lock down Hjärnan and Wadid. Schalke now running for their lives as here comes Wunder. He just blows up, upset, using that Darkin Blade, diving forward as PerkZ gets himself another. The Abyssal Void from Wadid delivers Hjärnan behind enemy lines. G2 Esports are dismantling Schalke no fear. Finally, Wunder goes down, but it simply doesn't matter. Vizicsacsi is the last man standing as he's trying to pull G2's attention, trying to slow down the inevitable. But with 40-second death timers, Hjärnan is untouched on the Nexus, and 35 minutes in, G2 Esports will claim the first victory in the Regional Qualifier Finals, and man, it was a shellacking.
They're making a statement in the first game against the team who made it all the way to the EU LCS Finals. 14-3 is the score at the end, 15k goal lead. And we gotta look at the composition G2 had right there. It's just comfort all around. It is the exact playstyle they want to play, with Tahm, Kench, Ashe bot lane, and Wunder on Aatrox.
You know, Deficio, at the start of the draft, you looked smug. You talked about the Olaf ban.
It's
you kind of have to respect it. And I was like, I feel like they need to consider the Aatrox ban. We talked about how maybe they could save it to the second draft, but by going for an early Poppy pick, it made it easy for Wunder to just say, all right, I'll lock in the Aatrox. I know I'm going to have a winning matchup. And then because they were on red side, they also got the counter pick for PerkZ. So I feel like G2 kind of got everything that they wanted in terms of the draft. And then in terms of execution, they played it beautifully.
Well, see how they're going to adapt. You can see very stern, very serious faces on the side of Schalke. And draft is very, very important. We touched on a number of the champions, Akali, Talia, Olaf, Urgot. How do these teams change? It was Schalke that picked blue side this game, and now G2 will have side selection in game 2.
Yeah, and if they can't play Urgot, the fact they have to ban it on blue side can be an issue. Otherwise, you could leave it open. You can threaten at that as a potential first pick on your side, and it could be used against Wunder specifically.
Well, we'll have a little bit more time to talk about that after the break. For now, we're going to head to the Analyst to find out how G2 won game 1.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, what a way to start your best of 5 for qualifying for Worlds if you're G2 Esports. And damn, what a game to lose when you are Schalke 04. We will talk about all of that. And we'll start with the picks and bans. Now, you, of course, interviewed Guilhoto, and he said, you know what, we didn't have any surprises that we saw when we saw G2 playing yesterday. We know what we have to do. He did give up some strong picks to G2, but maybe not the ones he'd expected.
Well, he says we know what we have to do, and they banned 3 of the 4 picks we we talked about earlier today. They banned Heimer, Olaf, and Urgot. The Heimer and the Olaf come picked for Jankos and Hjärnan respectively, and still G2 end up with a fantastic composition for what they want to do. They get the safe bot lane with the Tahm Kench, they get the Aatrox for Wunder, and I look at what Schalke got back in return. They got an okay bottom lane in Varus Alistar, and they got Poppy for Vizicsacsi, but it just didn't amount to much when you basically set up Poppy to lose to this Aatrox matchup. You know Wunder's going to take that.
I think everything we said before held true, and that's why G2 won here. First thing is that they got the jungle matchup that is more favorable. We saw Jankos was so dominant in the early game, and then he was able to play over top lane because Wunder was playing out of his mind in this game. Absolutely fantastic performance. We saw it late on in the teamfights as well. Really great game plan for G2 and snowballing over the right lanes.
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple of things that you talked about yesterday. You said Aatrox, I do not understand why people let anyone have this champion. It is incredibly strong. You also said you were surprised that Nukeduck got his hands on Ryze, 75% rather win rate on 8.16. I think there were strong tools in the hands of both teams, but it is the way for me that G2 worked with their comp that was methodical for me in a first game here.
Yeah, very clean execution by G2. Snowballing early lead over top side. Then afterwards getting Rift Tower, mid lane tower, top lane turret. Like everything just worked out for this team. And it was from A to Z, just clean gameplay and yeah, impressive first game, really.
Yeah, so let's take a look at then that methodical early game. Jankos, a guy we were looking at a bit of a coin flip in recent weeks. But yeah, the top lane gank, and I think most importantly also his pathing in the jungle.
I was just incredibly blown away by Jankos' performance. I was really worried when they locked in Sejuani and not a more aggressive pick, but he made this Sejuani look like such a powerhouse in the early game. The way that he shut down amazing, and the way that that initial gank on the top side set up the vision so that Jankos could just keep controlling the early game was fantastic. So often it feels like Jankos trying to set up the team, but it was G2 or Jankos setting up G2 and then G2 setting up Jankos in return in the early game that really let them take off.
Yeah, we knew that there will be friction in the map, that top lane will be winning matchup, bot lane winning matchup for G2, and mid lane depending if you have blue buff or not. So all of the lanes really benefited so much from Jankos playing so aggressive, amazing, having so much trouble actually keeping up, trying to get farm, only reaching level 6 like a minute later. So yeah, Jankos definitely doing what he needs to do for this team.
Absolutely crazy. Now, Schalke is not a team that is necessarily used to having huge leads in the early game, so I thought maybe they could bounce back from this, but I was really impressed from the fact that when the minute came for team fights and when G2 saw opportunities in the mid game, they executed those team fights to a T. I want to take a look at one of them in the mid lane, with in the end netted G2 a 4,000 gold lead at 22 minutes.
And I think this is kind of the story of the game when we see Schalke not really respecting the Tahm Kench pick and the potential for it to roam, and then you also see a little bit of these hiccups from upset. Deficio mentioned on Cass with the cleanse. We've seen a lot of AD carries swapping to cleanse this week, and a lot of AD carries, of course, still assuming that they have heal, I think, as it was the case here. And these little mistakes, these little hiccups really lead to, when you're already at a deficit, pretty much you just give up the game if you're going to make mistakes like this.
And this is the G2 that we are looking for. This is the G2 we want to send towards. From game one, totally different to yesterday. This game, they were really in the enemy's face, always looking for the fights, always executing well. And we're seeing it here. They are just not afraid to take the engagements.
Now, let me ask you, Sheepy. Here, of course, G2 was ahead, right? So they pick off someone. I was a bit surprised that from Schalke's side, a team that is usually quite reserved and methodical when they are behind as well, that they allowed themselves to get caught that early on and allowed the snowball to go crazy. What do you think?
I think there's a little bit of jitters, little mistakes we're seeing everywhere from both sides actually, but it was very minimal compared to the days before. Tahm being caught out, bot lane Nukeduck dying on Ryze, he's 4 on this champion, now 4-1, and on top lane Aatrox being caught out as well. So I really think that both of the teams, I think they are ready. There's just like small things that are adding up, and because both are so on point in this game, they are being...
I maybe have to just argue that a little bit, just from what I've seen from Schalke when they have been on form at the end of the split, as well as versus Fnatic. I don't think I've seen them make this many mistakes when it comes to the mid-game teamfights or getting caught, and even in the later game. I'm hoping that that's first game jitters.
I'm going to hope so as well, and it's actually a little bit concerning for me, but it is a situation now where Schalke are no longer coming in as the underdogs, so I think that what you said, or what we talked about earlier today with pressure, might actually be adding up to start to affect Schalke's gameplay. But we have seen pretty much every team, the first game that they play on this stage in the Regional Gauntlet is shaky. G2 got those jitters out yesterday. I feel like if you're a Schalke fan, you're hoping that that's what this first game was, because it was not very coordinated. VandeR was caught repeatedly, and usually, you know, you see the support in the jungler pair pairing up to go for this vision, and it just felt like a lot of different people with a lot of different plans on the side of Schalke, and if you're not playing together, you're not going to beat a coordinated G2.
Yeah, I still think it was a level below what we see from first game jitters from other teams. I think still Schalke was hanging in there. I think G2 was not winning by a huge surprise team fight or anything like this. They were won by slow methodical play and slow pressure that led up to VandeR making those kind of mistakes. And also I think Schalke was not really 100% sure how to deal with this Aatrox, because Alistar walks forward, he's like, I can tank this up, then Cassiopeia and Aatrox in the choke, and then you just can't fight back. So yeah, I think good draft for G2, and generally G2 just playing really strong.
Super clean. Let's take a look at the final team fights that buttoned it all up for G2, and I think this is where you see that even with Schalke getting caught, after this they try and mount like a counter attack. They want to hang in there. I think they owe that to themselves, but there's no way they come back in this game.
And you have to remember they're at a massive goal deficit at this stage. Now VandeR getting caught, obviously not an ideal start, but Schalke actually do make the most of this team fight. It was highlighted earlier. You can see Vizicsacsi missed the Poppy ult on Cassio. That could have been the turning point. But if you look at Upset just shred his way through the tank line, you know if he had time to finish that Infinity Edge or get an armor penetration item or whatever he wants to build, he could have killed 2 people in that exchange, and Schalke could have taken that fight. They got everything that they needed just about. The issue is they're just at such a massive deficit from all of their earlier mistakes.
Now when I look at these stats, of course, in the game, it is reminiscent of how strong G2 was in the first 3 weeks of the split. They went 6-0, and then it was even crazier. They were up almost 3k gold at 15 on average and 4,000 at 20. But I think it's important for their mindset, knowing that they go from the momentum of yesterday winning and kind of being back on top. If they can completely revisit how strong they were in the beginning of the split, yeah, then it looks pretty good for them for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and I honestly think we saw it in the last team fight as well, that G2 still had the opportunity to opt out of this team fight and just kite back towards Hjärnan. He wasn't even part of this team. But Schalke also looking for this opportunity. So I really think it's like 2 really strong opponents fighting against each other, and G2 really just looking at top of their game.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I'm blown away. We heard from PerkZ yesterday. He was on stage. He was smiling. He was confident in an interview that he did with Medic, and we heard, him kind of attributing a lot of their shaky performance to some weaker drafts. And I'm starting to believe it. I didn't believe it at first. I just thought the team was struggling. But we see the draft coming today. It's incredibly well executed, and it looks like a completely different team. And I think there's a lot of reason to have faith in G2 right now.
Definitely so. I mean, they come out swinging in the first game. Now, in the entirety of playoffs and Gauntlet, we've seen many teams come out swinging in the first game, but it has been the opponent ending up with the victory. So we have 5 games, another 4 games possibly to come. What is the first point of action for Schalke in the next draft?
I think what's happening right now here is really, really important. Everybody is just going back and kind of, throwing the ball to each other. What went wrong? Where can we get a little bit of an edge? Because I don't think it was a victory by a big margin. I think it was like slowly grinded out, and I think Schalke
Sheepy
still feels like there's the grasp that they can just turn around the game by 1.
Dude, but
Sheepy, you got a lot of faith.
G2 crushed them.
I think, though, that Schalke was doing really well, and I think it was like a team effort from G2. Everybody was giving.
Specify, man. You can't say you're doing really. Do you mean in like the first 5? What time period are you talking about?
The double host attack.
I'm sorry, but
It's
what
good,
time
it's
period
good,
are you
it's
talking
good.
about? What time period are you talking about that you thought Schalke were doing well? Because to me, it did not look like Schalke had control. There was a ton of individual mistakes, and yes, I do agree that I believe that they can iron this out. They can make small adjustments and come through. But that was not a good game from Schalke.
I think first up, Amazing was not ready for the pressure that Sejuani was bringing. I think Chachi getting caught topside, that can happen. But later on, he was still really relevant. The point where they really should have come back is where Nukeduck has the Ryze pick. He went towards bot side, and then he dies to the Cassiopeia. That was actually huge for the game, because before that, he was same CS. He started finishing his item. That was a win condition in itself, that he starts split pushing against the Cassiopeia. But because he died there, Schalke just looked totally lost. And they lost actually by everybody being a little bit weaker, and then if it comes together, it's just,
You see the good things that shine through. You are, of course, a coach. So you see things that Schalke can work on. They are not out of this one yet, but, it was a rough one.
Definitely. And if you get, 0-13 in the game and you lost absolutely everything, you got outplayed, this is 10 times harder. But I think in this one, there's a lot of hope, and I'm really looking forward to game 2.
Well, how big the stomp was, they just have to shake it off, Schalke 04, because G2 have their first win on the board. They are well on their way to Worlds, possibly. We'll see if they can go 2-0 after the break.
Flash available to him. Needs to get out of range. Insta flash. That W's going to block Wunder from chasing, but it's simply not enough. Easy death so far.
Both teams grouping up around the mid lane.
Amazing is now making it a hat trick of ganks. Stretching strike will find one. This could be the first kill for Schalke, and it looks like they will donate it to Nukeduck. But it's not over yet. Schalke are in a little bit of trouble. Upset! Flashes into the Grob. doesn't get over the wall, and that allows PerkZ to take him down. Devoured, spat back out, but here comes Nukeduck. The rest of Schalke are coming in. There's Amazing. He needs to channel Let's Bounce. Manages to throw out the stretching strike. Starts to split up the team. As Vizicsacsi goes down, there was not enough damage, not quickly enough. Schalke now running for their lives as here comes Wunder. He just blows up Upset using that Docking Blade, diving forward. G2 Esports will claim the first victory in the regional qualifier finals, and man, it was a shellacking.